For most of us, Zwift races are a fun way to get fit. And part of that fun is finding every little advantage. One power-up, the feather, reduces your weight by 10% for 30 seconds. But when is the right moment to use it? Well, in this video, we'll have a look at a few different button-smashing moments and compare its effects. Obviously, we all know it makes you lighter, which is a good thing on a hill. But is there a better time to use a feather? Now, on a long, sustained climb, a feather is universally considered a fairly moot point. I mean, it's handy to have, but it's just a psychological edge that you can use on a long, sustained climb. But what I want to look at is the short, punchy climbs, because the feathers have the biggest impact here. I like to think that I have a decent understanding of physics. The best use of a feather is when air resistance is at its lowest, the slowest point of the climb, where watts per kilo is king. But I'm a lazy person naturally, hence why I look for any advantage I can get on Zwift. Now, combined with my inability to do simple maths and also speak English correctly, I thought I'd ask ChatGPT to do the legwork. My pun intended there. The scenario I gave ChatGPT was an 85 kilogram rider at 300 watts, starting on the flat, then hitting a 10% climb, firstly for 1 minute and then 2 minutes. I asked two questions. The effect of hitting the power up at the start of the climb versus hitting the power up when speed had slowed and stabilized. Now, surprisingly or not, ChatGPT wasn't exactly clear on the results. Firstly, stating that using the feather earlier was faster, and then when I asked for the results, it stated that using it later was around 1 second faster. So, yes, using ChatGPT probably gives, I suspect that is the correct answer. I'm not sure about 1 second. So let's do some real world, virtual world testing. With Zwift, I decided to use a bit more appropriate figures for a shorter climb because most of us will probably be attacking it. Now, these numbers are probably pretty modest. So I did 400 watts for a 75 kilogram rider. Now, that's the easy part. But what about what course to choose? I need to have easy access to a feather as I don't have all day to test as it spins through the different power-ups. It could take all day just to do 2 tests. So what I needed was a short, steep, steady initial climb, which the grade is perfect for this. But the issue was getting a feather power-up. So I chose the portal route, specifically the old Aquarimont. I'm not going to say that again because there's no way that I got that right. It's not perfect as it eases in grade fairly quickly, but it's close enough to give us a clearer picture, and it saves me a lot more time than finding the grade and getting power-ups. So scenario 1, I decided to use the power-up 9 seconds early to get extra momentum into the climb. I just wanted to check, because momentum is king on Zwift. And we're not going to watch the whole thing of the climb. Let's just show that that was the very first scenario. And then we're going to compare that, the next scenario 2, where the power-up after most of the speed drops. I decided 25 kilometers an hour was a good point as the climb eases too early to wait until speed drops. I'm not going to go through this video entirely showing this. What I'll do is, because we've got the ghost of the previous attempt on the climb, I can just keep showing you just the first few seconds, just the beginning minutes of the climb. So the last scenario was the one that I asked ChatGPT about waiting until the speed has dropped. And now this scenario 3 is the power at the very start of the climb. So this gives us a good opportunity to see how close ChatGPT was, just to confirm that the large language model mathematics so that we don't have to keep testing on Zwift. We could just ask ChatGPT what it thinks is the best moment to do things based on the information it has. Then the last scenario, scenario 4, just to confirm to myself that using a power-up to help accelerate from a low speed as the climb levels off isn't as beneficial. Now with scenario 4, you can see that there's too big a gap. You can't close down the gap by using the feather to accelerate as the climb eases. There's just too big a deficit. But I can hear you say, Ben, what about lighter riders? What about higher watts? What about lower watts? Well, I've covered that as well. So this is a 55 kilogram rider, the same watts per kilo pretty much. 291 watts. This is the second run. You'll see the ghost appear and activate the feather right now. And then once I hit 25 kilometers an hour, I'll activate the feather again. As this, I don't want to make this video far too long, so I'll fast forward the video and show that the distance between the two riders is exactly the same time at the top as the previous test. And now we have a 75 kilogram rider at 200 watts. Again, this is the second run using the power up late. So you'll see the ghost appear and use the feather power up right here. And then because it is such a low wattage, I do have plenty of time to wait for the speed to come right down. I think I pressed it at about 10 kilometers an hour. There we go, 11 kilometers an hour. With this low speed, we do have a lot more time to spend at the maximum gradient. So this definitely gives us a fair representation of the advantage of pressing the power up when the speed is dropped. Now, as the speeds are very, very low, the distances will look far smaller. But again, the time will be about 0.2 of a second. As you can see, now all the cases, you can see that every single time the power up ran out, there was a convergence of the riders. It was just the advantage of a little bit more momentum from using the feather late. Now I'll fast forward this, but just note, see how the riders look very close together. It's just an example of speed versus time. We'll fast forward to the top now. Now just note, as the grade levels off, you can see the distance between the riders does separate a bit, which is a classic example of the concertina effect when you hit a climb and then you exit it, which is why the pack seems to accelerate away from you over the top of a climb. Now, one thing I do notice is there is actually a bigger advantage, even though it doesn't look it. In the times, there's 0.34 versus 0.58, which is greater than 0.2 of a second, which the higher speeds are showing. And finally, a high speed test. We hit a full bore, 600 watts. This is the second run again. You'll see as I enter the portal, the Ghost Rider will hit that power up at the bottom of the climb. Now, I think I hit it pretty early for this rider because the speed isn't going to drop off very much. But when did I hit it? I hit it about here. So there, 31, 32 kilometers an hour. I couldn't wait much longer because the climb really eases off very quickly at this speed. Now, it is fun watching someone doing 600 watts at 7 watts per kilo, just about up this climb. Get all the way to here before the feather's starting to run out. Now, with all of the tests, you can see that every single time, pretty much, as the riders converged, the power up would run out on the second one. This one was probably a slightly bit further behind, but there is still that momentum. Momentum gain. Now, I'm not going to bother fast forwarding. Let's just enjoy someone absolutely crushing up this hill. The bot anyway. It's fast enough as it is at 600 watts. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but the Ghost always acts a little bit strange because of the recording rather than mostly the data. But you'll see the Ghost bounce in and out. It's also the camera also bouncing in and out. I was tempting not to accidentally hit the feather power up when doing these tests. It's ingrained in me to hit those power ups whenever I had them. Here we come, that 350 meters to go. Second gate. And just keep an eye on the time, but from memory it was 0.19 second difference, which is less than it was at the 200 watts. In all cases, it is faster to deploy the feather after the speed drops. However, if watts per kilo or watts is higher, so you're traveling faster, then this difference is less. This may be simply due to the test because of the fact that the hill isn't long enough But it does make sense, as higher speeds create a situation that drag is a larger component of the drag equation, so you're having to still fight air resistance. Now, for these riders, it's all about situational awareness. Do you need to use that feather early to be able to just hold the draft over this short climb? Or are you able to be the hammer in the group where you can hold the feather, wait till everyone else has used their feather, and then you can deploy the feather later on the climb so that you can pull away and break their draft. As the hill eases up, you can accelerate away and hit them where it hurts. Hit them hard. So closing thoughts. Obviously, on long sustained climbs like the Alp and Ventop, you don't need to pay much attention to when you use a feather. It's purely a psychological power up for you. But you can clearly see that misusing a feather is going to cause extra hurt at impact points in a race, where just losing 2 or 3 meters will make a difference. Now, I didn't include drafting in this test because, well, that's a whole other ballgame. But I did cover the effects of a draft on a climb somewhat in this video. It's an aero versus a climbing bike on a rolling course, but it does show the effects of hitting the front just before a climb where you lose the draft. A lot of the times it's not the bike, but it's bad positioning and losing the draft that will cost you. So take a look at that video just to see the difference it makes with positioning. Now, thanks for watching. If this helped in any way, please hit that subscribe button, as it really does help getting these videos produced. All right, peace out.